Hello and welcome to another video. I wanted to take some time today to talk to you guys about genetics and the diagnosis of disease, because I get so many people in the office that come in with various things, anything from rashes to high cholesterol to high blood pressure, diabetes, or even cancer. And they say to me, Roseanne, I have this because my mother always got rashes, or my mother had psoriasis, my father had high blood pressure, or cancer runs in my family. And so when they start the conversation with that, then there's this sense of, listen, I've got this because there's this genetic connection, this genetic history. And because of that genetic history, I want you to know that I don't expect that anything can be done for this. And the thought of not being able to do anything for cancer in this world of natural therapy that I do, of course, a lot of people think, well, it's cancer. You can't do anything for that, but maybe you can help my headaches, right? For me and for everyone at Partners in Healing, we think a different way. We definitely think a different way. That, first of all, it doesn't matter what we call it, it still is a basic imbalance of acid and alkalinity within the body, and therefore, if we correct that imbalance through detoxification and cellular regeneration, then we can correct the disease process, right? We can reach the cause of the disease and then therefore reverse it. But a lot of times when people walk in with that mindset of this is genetic, so I don't think that there's anything that can be done, or there is nothing that can be done in their mindset, then I'm faced with quite the challenge. Because if it's somebody who has, something that has not been diagnosed in the family, then it's an easier sell, so to speak, to convince them that they can do things to change their body, change their lifestyle, and therefore stop the disease process. But boy, when someone comes in saying that it's genetic, it really leaves me and my staff with quite the challenge. But luckily, we're always up for that challenge. So those of you who know me, who have listened to videos, who have read my book, or have been a patient in my office, you know that I am the queen of analogies. I love using analogies to help people comprehend concepts that are about healing. And so today is no different. It's no different, because when we talk about genetics, I want to give you a picture. As a matter of fact, I'm not only going to give you a picture, I'm going to use a couple of props. Props from my own backyard and from my neighborhood. And those of you who know me know that I live in South Florida, so these props are easy to come by in South Florida. But when we talk about genetics, I want you to understand that your genes play an extraordinarily small role in whether or not you are going to have a disease. I'll say that again. Your genes play an incredibly small role in whether or not a disease process, a particular disease process, is going to occur in your body. The larger role comes from your lifestyle. The larger role comes from everything that you have done, consumed, breathed, eat, and been exposed to, including stress, from the day you were born until right now. That is the larger part of the process of disease. Even though so many times when you click on that television, when you flip through that magazine, when you go on the internet, you see people, experts even, saying that this issue is genetic, and so you don't really have a way to fix it. We'll just medicate it and kind of suppress the symptoms. And isn't that interesting? Because if it's genetic, then don't you feel powerless? Don't you feel that you don't have a way to change your genes? And therefore, how can you change the outcome of this disease? You are truly left powerless. And whether or not the medical community wants you to feel that way, if that is their intention or not, I don't know. But don't you feel that way? Don't you feel powerless when someone says, well, your father and your grandmother had diabetes, so yeah, it seems logical that you would get it. You're now powerless, except to take medication. But if you understand genetics and you understand the insignificant role they play, I'm not saying they don't play a role at all, and certainly when we do iridology, we talk about constitution and genetic strengths versus weaknesses. We do talk about that. But we also talk about the ability to strengthen those weaknesses. But let's understand genetics for a moment. You have DNA. That is your the roadmap to you, to your life, to everything about you, from your color eyes to your color hair and everything in between. And everything has DNA. Every living thing has DNA, including, for example, this coconut. Yeah, it's a baby coconut. It fell off the tree early, so usually they'll be much bigger. But this coconut has DNA. That if you took a scraping of it, maybe you cut it open and you scraped the meat inside, and you took that scraping and you brought it to a laboratory, they can actually tell you what that is. That DNA came from a coconut, and therefore, well, it's coconut, meat, flesh, whatever. So the DNA is the map of the species, the plant, the human, the animal, that tells us exactly what we are. So this coconut has the DNA of a coconut. It doesn't have the DNA of an apple. It doesn't have the DNA of a banana. It doesn't have the DNA of a pineapple. It has the DNA of a coconut. And therefore, it is actually the seed of a coconut tree, right? We consider this a seed. And so if we took this coconut and we went outside here in South Florida, and we either planted it in the ground or actually even let it just sit on the ground, or let it sit on the banks of a lake, which we see oftentimes here in South Florida. Coconuts fall off the tree in a storm, they roll down into the water, they float across the lake, and then they end up at the bank of the other side of the lake. So if here in South Florida we took that coconut, we either planted it or set it on the ground or set it in the water, something interesting will happen. That coconut will turn into a coconut tree. Go figure. It will sprout roots. It will sprout a trunk and leaves. And left long enough, it will become a coconut tree, full-grown coconut tree, to produce more coconuts. It's not going to be an apple tree. It's not going to be a banana tree. It's not going to be an oak tree. It's going to be a coconut tree, because that's what its genes say it is. It's genetically set up to be a coconut tree. However, if I took that coconut and I went up to maybe Canada or Alaska or England, and I planted that coconut in the ground, I guarantee you, DNA or not, it will not manifest into a coconut tree. I can stay there, I can wait there as long as I want. I can pray over it, I can hope, I can wish, but that coconut will never become a coconut tree. because of one thing and one thing only. Not because of its DNA. Its DNA is perched, ready for this coconut to be what it is supposed to be. The reason why this coconut will not become a coconut tree in Canada or Alaska or England is simple. The environment is one in which a coconut tree cannot be sustained, cannot grow, cannot thrive. You see, it doesn't matter that it has the DNA ready to become a coconut tree. What matters is that that DNA is put into an environment in which that coconut tree can manifest. If that coconut is not given the proper environment, it will remain a coconut. So let's relate that then to disease. If you have a genetic predisposition for diabetes, your father had it, your grandfather had it, uncle had it, or high blood pressure, or autoimmune diseases like Graves' disease, lupus, rheumatoid arthritis. If that DNA was in you because it was in someone else or someone's else in your life, in your history, in your family, that disease still cannot manifest unless you create the environment in which it will. And what is that environment? That environment is an acidic environment. That environment is a dirty, lymphatically congested environment. That environment is an inflammatory environment. That environment is a destructive environment. All of that starts with acid, because remember, you are a base species. You are an alkaline species. If you create an alkaline environment within these 100 trillion cells and great lymphatic system, then you don't have to worry about your father's diabetes and your mother's high blood pressure and your aunt's autoimmune disease. However, if you create an acid environment where your cells start to live in a congested pool of waste within that lymphatic system, where that acid waste starts to inflame those cells, where it starts to break down those cells, then you give the cells every opportunity to manifest that genetic predisposition. And the incredibly good news is that if you are in that state, well, I can't make that coconut go backwards. I can't make that tree go back to being a coconut. We can turn off those genetics, just like Dr. Colin Campbell did in the China study with rats. We can turn those genetics on and off over and over and over again so that we can reverse the process of disease. Think about that. We are reversing the process that caused disease. That acid process that congested the lymphatic system, that caused inflammation, that broke down cells, that finally allowed that genetic predisposition to manifest, we can reverse that. But we have to do that in an alkaline state. We have to do that with alkaline foods, with the proper herbs, with the proper cleansing. We can do that. The genetics become not a big deal. The genetics become something to notice. Yeah, we look in the iris, we understand there's some weakness here, there's some weakness there, we get that. But we can prevent and undo by detoxification and cellular regeneration. So when someone tells you, when you get that diagnosis, and I hope you don't, but if you do get that diagnosis where the doctor says to you, well, this is a genetic issue, whether it's high blood pressure, cholesterol, diabetes, or cancer, your answer to the doctor is, it's not a genetic issue. It's an environmental issue. And I'm about to change that environment. And when you change that environment, everything changes. But don't be left powerless. Don't be left powerless, where the blame is put on something you can't even see. Your genetics, your DNA. The blame is placed on something, as far as you're concerned, imaginary. You can't see it, feel it, or touch it. And therefore you have no power to deal with it. But when you understand, pure and simple, that this is an environmental situation, then you change the environment and you turn off those genetics. As I mentioned, Dr. Colin Campbell did it many years ago in study after study after study, utilizing rats with cancer. Higher protein, cancer comes back. Lower protein, cancer goes away. I did it with my own dog. High protein diet, tumors pop up. Alkaline diet, tumors go away. So you have that power. You have that power. Don't give it up. And even if it's that scary word that for some reason makes everyone wake up and go, oh my God, I have to do something. Even if a doctor diagnoses you with cancer, understand that that is just an effect of an acidic environment that has very, very little to do with your DNA. So you guys, this is extraordinarily important for you to know and for you to address in your life, in your detox, in your health. If you have been diagnosed with a disease and you are 40 years old, you now have to clean up 40 years of crap. If you're 50 years old, you got 50 years of crap. And there's no harsh drug, pill, or surgery that will do the work to turn off those genes. It doesn't exist. The only work to do to turn off those genetics is to go back to a species-specific diet, knowing that you are an alkaline species, that your teeth were designed for the purpose of eating plants, that your digestive tract was designed for the purpose of eating plants, primarily fruits, so that that lymphatic system stays clean and alkalized and moving, so that your kidneys and your colon and your skin eliminate that cellular metabolic waste easily, effectively, and efficiently, so that those cells, those 100 trillion cells, head to toe, can function in the most optimal environment, in the most optimal way. There's not a pill or surgery that does that. It is only the alkalization of the diet, the cleaning of the lymphatic system, and the regeneration of cells. So don't worry about your genes. Worry more about your environment. Be concerned more about what you put into your body. Be more conscious. Be more aware. Be more thankful and joyful that you have the ability to turn off genetics, to reverse the process of disease, and then be so full of gratitude that you actually dig in and do it. I wish you, as always, all the best health, all the most beautiful and abundant fruit and living, life force-filled food. Hope you have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk soon.